Home, supposed to be our safe haven, our comfort, our safe space, but sometimes, somebody comes along to ruin that for us. Please enjoy these 3 true scary stories about home invasions, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I was asleep during a rainstorm, and sometimes I wish I wasn't a light sleeper. I didn't even hear the window break downstairs, but the lightning sure woke me up. The rain hammered against the roof, a relentless rhythm that echoed through the pounding in my chest. I huddled deeper in the shadows, my breath fogging the cool air. Below me, the house creaked and groaned, the sound of the intruder's movements amplified in the silence. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird struggling to escape. This wasn't supposed to happen. My husband, Mark, was supposed to be home by now. He had promised, but the storm had come in with a vengeance, a sudden fury of wind and rain that had grounded flights and delayed trains. He was stuck somewhere miles away while I was trapped here, a sitting duck in my own home. The intruder was methodical, his steps slow and purposeful as he moved through the house. I listened, my senses heightened, every creak and groan sending chills down my spine. He moved to the living room, the sound of furniture scraping against the floor sending a tremor through me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and text from Mark, stuck at the airport, flight delayed indefinitely. Don't go out and pick me up. I'll be home as soon as possible. We'll take a taxi. The words were a cold comfort, but I pressed my back against the wall after I got out of bed, my hand hovering near the old baseball bat that lay hidden in a corner. I never thought I'd need it, but now I felt like it was my only hope. The thud of a heavy object hitting the floor sent a jolt through me. It sounded like a lamp smashing to pieces. I squeezed my eyes shut, my breath catching in my throat. I needed to get out of the house, but my anxiety trapped me like a sleep paralysis demon holding me down. The footsteps moved closer, the sound of them echoing through the empty house, my heart pounding in my chest again. A frantic rhythm grew in the growing silence. Then the door creaked open, slow and deliberate. The intruder had descended the stairs. My hand tightened around the bat handle. The steps drew closer, the sound of each creaking wood echoing in my bedroom. I held my breath, my body tense, waiting for him to appear. The air grew heavy and thick with the smell of damp wood and dust. A shadow fell across the bedroom floor, stretching long and menacing. I squinted, my eyes straining to pierce the darkness. The intruder was in the doorway, his face obscured by the shadows. He wore a dark hooded jacket, his features hidden behind the fabric. "Who's there?" I rasped, my voice trembling. The intruder didn't answer, he just stood there, silent and unmoving, his eyes gleaming in the darkness. He took a step forward, the floorboards creaking under his weight. My hand tightened on the bat handle, my knuckles turning white. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe he wanted money, maybe he wanted something else. But I knew one thing, I wouldn't get out of here without a fight. Suddenly a loud crash echoed from downstairs, followed by a chilling silence. It seems that something had fallen over in his movements. The intruder froze, his head turning towards the sound, and I saw my opportunity. I swung the bat, my arm a blur of motion. The weapon met its target with a dull thud, the sound muffled by the darkness and the sounds of a distant rainstorm. I didn't wait to see the result. I scrambled down my stairs, my heart hammering in my chest, and I ran through my house, my bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only run. I had to get out of there. I burst through the front door and into the night. The rain was still falling, but now felt like a blessing, washing away the fear and the adrenaline. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed in protest. I didn't stop until I reached a nearby park, the familiar shadows of trees offering a semblance of safety. I collapsed onto the grass, my body trembling uncontrollably. I had survived, but the experience had left me shaking. A terrifying echo of the intruder's presence lingering in my mind. The darkness seemed deeper, but the silence was more oppressive. I knew I wouldn't be able to stay here for long, not for long at all. I had to get somewhere safe to call the police, to the safety of a neighbor's house. When I got there, I did call the police, but by the time they got there, the man had woken up. He apparently was a serial home invader and was moving through the area. Despite the broken windows and lamps, it turned out a lot better than it could have. When Mark arrived home, he was angry with himself, but he shouldn't be. I'm just glad I made it through the night. My home invader, let's meet again. I want to hit another home run. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough to not feel isolated. The area had no streetlights, so it was very dark at night, especially if there were clouds blocking the moonlight. It didn't bother me, though. It made my house feel even more quaint on dark nights. I got home from work one day in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up to my house, I saw only what my headlights and front porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. That was odd, as I never smelled that before around the house. I didn't see anybody nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just gotten off of a shift with a few hours of overtime, so I was pretty tired. Even though it wasn't even 7 yet, I decided to take a shower and call it a night. I woke up sometime later when I heard noise inside my house. I wasn't worried right away because my friend would sometimes stop by and use my shower after work on his way to his night classes. I even gave him a spare key so he could stop by when I wasn't home. He would always text me to let me know beforehand, though, and I hadn't heard my phone going off. I reached over to my bedside table and picked up my cell phone to see if my friend had sent me a text. The bright light from my phone's screen and number pad blinded me. These were the days before phones had a light sensor that would dim the screen in the dark, and this particular phone was so bright I could use it as a flashlight. Through squinted eyes, I could make out it was 9-something, but couldn't tell if I had an unread text or not. I set my phone aside and called out my friend's name. There were a couple of seconds of silence before I heard loud footfalls as someone started running through the bottom floor of my house. I leapt out of bed and ran to the closet. They were already up the stairs by the time I had opened the door and stepped inside. This house had 3 rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway, the one I was in, and a spare and a bathroom at the end. The bedroom doors were both closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard whoever was in my home thunder down the hallway past my door and into the bathroom. Thank God he did. It gave me enough time to open the attic access to the ceiling in my closet and hoist myself up. I had just started to lift myself up when the person ran back out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside the attic when my bedroom door burst open. I heard footsteps run into my room and stop. When they didn't see me in the room, they ran back to the hallway and into the other room, which just had boxes stacked in the corner, some weights and a table where I painted my miniature models. I guess they decided that if someone was hiding, it would be in the bedroom because they charged back into my room and turned on the light. A moment later, the closet door was ripped open. I was crouched in my attic just a foot away from the access, so I could try to stop them if they started to climb up. From my vantage point, all I could see was about their knee high. They were wearing dirty blue jeans with frayed cuffs and worn out work boots. After a few seconds of looking in the closet, they stepped away and I heard a loud crash come from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. That scream was the most unnerving part of the incident for me. It reminded me far too much of my stepfather, who would scream in a similar way when he lost his temper. He would eventually be put in a mental hospital for several mental disorders that resulted in erratic and violent tendencies. The man in my house ran back down the stairs, and I heard crashes and clatters as things were thrown around and furniture was knocked over. I stayed crouched in the attic. I had left my cell phone when I ran for the closet, and I wasn't certain I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped. I started counting slowly. When I reached 1,000, I decided it was safe enough to climb down and call the police. The first thing I noticed when I exited the closet was the furniture had flipped my bed over. I assumed in an attempt to find me. There was a loud noise I had heard after he stepped away from the closet. I couldn't find my cell phone, so I went to the landline by the bed and called the police. I waited in my room until I heard them call out from downstairs. The first floor was a mess, but I expected that. The chairs had been knocked over and the sofa had been flipped. All the books, pictures, and knickknacks I had on my shelves were strewn across the floor. The cupboards in the kitchen had been opened and all the boxed and canned foods had been thrown on the ground. As far as I could tell, though, the only thing missing was a single knife out of the wooden block in my kitchen. The police checked the house from top to bottom. They found out the side door had been forced open by something like a crowbar. They also found cigarette butts all along my fence line with some foil and an empty pen tube, which the police said was often used to smoke meth. So they think he had been watching my house for a while. I realized that he must have been out there smoking a cigarette when I got home. They collected up the evidence and told me that I should stay with family or friends that night and get that door fixed as soon as possible. I opted to just not sleep. I moved a shelf over to block the broken door and spent the next couple hours cleaning things up. I would often go to the window with a flashlight and shine it along the fence line where the police found the cigarette butts and foil, but I didn't see anything. The next day, I had the door fixed and the motion lights installed on the back sides of my house. I ran a phone cable up to the attic and added a landline. I never wanted to be stuck up there again without a phone. Nothing else happened at that house, though. I lived there another 3 years without incident. One more precaution I took was practicing getting out of my bed, going to my closet, and climbing into the attic as quickly and quietly as possible. I don't even want to think about what would have happened had I not been fast enough to get from my bed to the attic. So this happened in 2013 and I was 17. My family was looking at this house and the owner had showed up, talked to my parents. Seemed like a nice older man, built the house himself. It was pretty nice, 2-story house overlooking a river. Anyway, I was standing back watching everyone talk, and as the owner is talking and laughing, there's a break in the conversation where he turns away from my parents. His expression completely and instantly changes from happy to the most sinister and hateful scowl I've ever seen. I didn't think he noticed me watching. It probably appeared to be on my phone as my head was down. As soon as he turned back, he instantly went back to smiling. It was just so creepy and honestly made me feel sick. I told my mom, who said it was weird, but maybe he's just awkward. When we got to the house, we moved in the next weekend. My family was going to church and I didn't feel like going, so they'd all left me at home. So it's Sunday morning at about 11 a.m. and I hear really loud banging outside. It's rhythmic and it's coming from the side of the house. I was on the other side of the house on the second floor. Honestly, my dumbass thought it maybe was the wind. It was stormy that day, and I didn't think much of it. It stopped after about 5 minutes. Then 10 minutes later, I hear walking around downstairs, chairs moving, kitchen cabinets opening, and the fridge opening. I immediately quietly lock my door, grab my baseball bat, and call 911. When I tell them my address, I text my mom and tell her that someone is in the house and that I've called 911. At that point, the 911 operator said that someone was 10 minutes out. I tell her I could hear footsteps walking around the stairs. Basically, the house was so thin I could track where he was. At this time, my mom responded that she's on her way. She's 30 minutes away, so here's a 17-year-old, 5'2", 100-pound girl hunkered in a room, knowing full well that if he came in, he'd overpower me and take the bat. I was terrified. I heard him walk around the hallway towards my door. I saw the handle turn and stop. It was locked. And I heard him stand there. He didn't move. I could hear his breathing. It felt like forever. But really, it was about 10 seconds. I heard him turn and go back downstairs. I heard the back door open and shut. After about 3 minutes, the police pulled up. The 911 operator asked me if I could let them in or if they needed to force it. I knew he had left, so I let them in. No one was there. No sign of forced entry. Nothing. When my mom got there, she looked at my stepdad and asked if he had changed the locks. He hadn't. I think the creepiest part and what really validated my story was that my mom had just vacuumed the hallway and there were shoe prints that were larger than anyone in our house. And the police hadn't been up there. They just stopped outside my room. He died a year after that. Please don't forget to change your locks.